And welcome back to the 52nd running of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. I'm Dave Bradley. Along with me is Todd Lewis as we get set to bring to you the Super Production Challenge and their first race of the weekend. And what makes this series interesting is mainly the start. So there'll be 3 different classes running all together, separated for this initial start, but it's not your typical rolling start. It'll be a standing start here on the front straightaway. And that's going to make a hair-raising moment going into turn number 1 for the first time.
Dave, we talk about the opportunity to gain on starts and restarts, and it is even further amplified with a standing start. You get a better start than your opponent, and it's an opportunity for you to make gains.
Let's head down to track level.
Mesdames et messieurs, pour prononcer l'invitation traditionnelle à lancer les moteurs, accueillons un responsable marketing chez au réseau fixe, Monsieur Adam Saint-Amand.
Pilote, démarrez vos moteurs. Driver, start your engine.
And there the field comes to life here on the front straightaway. Now they're not lined up yet, I don't believe, in their starting positions. They'll do a warm-up lap and then they'll come and find their starting slot. And that is not myself or Todd. That is the French stream broadcast doing their show opening as we get set to go here on the English side. But Todd Lewis, as I mentioned, joining me up here in the booth. And we see different sports car series on track at different facilities and on track here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Super Production Challenge, not only do they have a standing start, 3 classes involved, and they're all very different race cars.
And when you have 3 different classes on track, like in any sports car series, you're going to have intermingling of the classes as the 30-minute race runs along. That becomes part of the challenge, that becomes part of your duty to navigate the other classes and the other traffic. Perhaps you're in the Super Production Challenge when you've got 500 horsepower, then you have to navigate through the production and the compact categories with lower horsepower.
Yeah, and you look at some of the different makes and models that are represented in this class, or in this series, I should say. You've got a Nissan 370, you've got a Chevy Camaro, you've got a Hyundai Genesis, BMWs, a Honda Civics, a Ford Mustang EcoBoost, so that's the 4-cylinder Ford Mustang. And then you look through the other divisions, the production class, so there's super production, and then compact. So the super production are the marks that I mentioned earlier, and then in the production class you have Subaru BRZs, Toyota GR6, Honda Civics, Mini Coopers, and then in the compact class, they're the typical compact cars that you would see, the Honda Fits, Toyota Echo Cup, the Nissan Micra Cup cars that we've seen out here on the track at times already today. But yeah, there's just a vast array of different cars. There's a brand new Acura TLX making a debut in the production class here today. So all these cars have to remain stock appearing. So you can't put any huge fenders on it. You can't add any major front fairing differences or anything like that. They have to remain like they looked when they drove off the lot, essentially. The big tail wing is one exception, and there's a small splitter being allowed this year as well.
Yes, and that makes a difference, too, in terms of the recognition of the cars. It looks a lot more like the car that you may have or the car that you may see out on the streets. It's like, oh, that does look like a Lexus. That does look like an Acura. It's much more recognizable without all of the sophisticated aerodynamics around the front. They make an enormous difference, and that's why other series use them.
Yeah, for sure. Like a big splitter on these race cars will add a lot of front-end downforce. Now, the Super Production Series has allowed some changes, like a little bit of a splitter, but it is really regulated. As a matter of fact, it's allowed, but it must not, and I'm reading the exact rule, it must not extend more than 3 inches beyond the bumper, measured from the contact point of the bumper. So that's 3 inches. A splitter is not a whole heck of a lot, and they're trying to keep things all even.
Everybody's now completing their 1 pace lap, so they'll get lined up out on the front straight. You see the markings for the cars to grid themselves and get into position for the standing start here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières.
And where do you want to be? Dirtiness on the track could play a role, and how you're going to hook up, and also, are you driving a front-wheel drive car, because it's not going to go as much as you want it to on a standing start. But Eric Hagenschurz is going to lead things off. Olivier Bedard in the Nissan. Then it's Jimmy Briere in the Hyundai. Marc Aru in the Chevy Camaro. The Bernier car is a BMW 330, so that'll start in row number 3. You can see the entire field now, and they're going to stretch right around the corner as you get the compact cars lining up towards the tail of the field. Gabriel Lacombe, Marc-André Bourdage, then it's Samuel Leclerc, Alex Habrich, Sylvain Laporte, Michael Habrich, Sean Bernier, Nelson Chan, Yannick Lupien, then Carlo Tessier, Mario Charette, Joel Watts. And that'll do it for the super production class. And then you get into the production class. That's where you find Samuel Leclerc in the Acura TLX. And Chan and Owen Clark along with Kai Dial. The Subaru BRZ as we are green on this standing start. Some drivers getting away a lot cleaner than others. You see that Chevy Camaro not getting the jump that the others did. Marc Aru falling back several spots.
Oh, and look at that, 3, 4, 5 wide coming through corner number 1. Oh, everyone tiptoeing just a little bit, yellow flag waving in that corner. There's an incident ahead.
Problems on that Ford EcoBoost. It just did not get going as the drivers come into that yellow flag area. They were still racing for position, and we're still green. So clean enough to stay green at this point, but some of the drivers, I saw one car take a huge hop. Yeah, it's a big hit right there for one of the Habrich cars.
Everybody looks like they're finding their way through, but they are losing an awful lot of track position up front to the leaders who have found their way through. And yes, there you see the trouble with some of the bodywork that's fallen off after a little bit of contact.
That was your pole sitter, Hagenschurz. But there is the, yeah, you can see the wheel is already hopping. I saw that part and I was like, what did he hit? But he had hit something well before, and it is it's one of the Habrich cars. I think it's Alex Habrich. And yeah, it's in the 75. And the right front corner is completely torn off that Nissan 370. So yeah, it is going to be a full course caution. Safety car is out. A 30-minute timed race for the Super Production Challenge division. And we don't even have one fully completed lap in the books just yet.
And a lot of changing of positions and shuffling on that first opening lap as well. This is the difficulty with the standing starts, is trying to navigate your way through. We saw a number of cars that got a really good jump from the start, and others that didn't, including your pole sitter. That number 75 car also had problems with Alex Habrich, who is going to get towed back to pit lane.
Yeah, what happened to the 11 car, though? We saw him come through at the last minute there when the caution was out. So Hagenschurz had damage to the back end. The rear bumper cover was flailing.
Was that possibly the incident that we saw, the yellow flag waving as we approached corner number 2, that something had occurred before he got to corner number 3 and finally made his way through?
Well, it would sort of put 2 and 2 together, because if it was the 75 of Habrich that got into the back of the 11th, which is quite possible. I mean, Habrich started way down in 12th spot, so he'd have to gain a lot of ground to go into the... So have another look. Now watch that yellow BMW on the left front corner of your screen. So here's the start. As the lights go out, the drivers get going. You see a lot of wheel spin from a lot of these cars. There's Bedard in the white Nissan to the outside as the rest of the field comes through. So we're clean at this point, clean-ish.
You're watching the field as they make their way through towards corner number 1. That's the compacts category that didn't make their way through, or were making their way through corner number 1. The trouble occurred further ahead.
Yeah, so that's debris on the track left over from an incident theoretically off the start, but we didn't see it happen, at least not in that replay. But the 75 of Habrich stopped. Now the tow truck, it's going to take a full flatbed to get him off the racetrack. And you can see that plastic needs cleaning up. One of the cleanup trucks actually drove over it and splintered it to about 1 million pieces.
And now everyone else is going to have to tiptoe around that until they can pick up and sweep up all of those little bits that were scattered around the front straightaway there at the start of this race. Lap 1, an incident, and lap 2 just being completed now. It is Olivier Bedard who takes over the top spot. Jimmy Briere, Gabriel Lacombe, Sean Bernier, and Marc Aero are the top 5.
Now there you can see towards the back of this field, and the bodywork's still hanging off. There you can see it's sort of poking out. That is the number 11. So that's Eric Hagenschurz, and he's your points leader coming into this race. So, I mean, you sat on the pole, you're leading the points, things are looking pretty good until all of a sudden something happened out of camera range, and there you can see the back bumper is completely caved in. It looks like he made contact, yeah, big contact, because the rear taillight is also broken and the back end is bent up. So that happened in turn number 2 when we were going through on lap number 1. So the camera stayed with the field here on the front straightaway to make sure everybody got through cleanly.
Did Hagenschurz get wide in corner number 2, the contact on the right-hand side, as we've seen drivers get pushed up. Then we had the waving yellow flag for the awareness for the rest of the field to be aware that that may have been the problem, that he got wide in corner number 2.
Yeah, that might make sense because it just a touch of the tire wall, and that's what caused him to drop way back in the field, because it didn't make sense with the 75. His contact wouldn't have been on the same side as the, yeah, it's
different incident.
Right side to right side. I mean, unless they're both facing or spun around, and then it's a bigger problem than just a couple cars that are slightly damaged. But you can see the cleanup now on the front straightaways to get all those plastic bits, because stock appearing means a lot of the stock pieces are still under the hood. You've got the wheel arches still under there, and the rear enforcement for the bumper, the reinforcing for the bumpers, all still in there too.
Field coming through one more time. Safety workers directing them over to the driver's right side of the track as they continue that cleanup to pick up all those little bits to not cause any further problems and hopefully get back to racing, as just over 6 minutes have elapsed in this 30-minute timed event in the Super Production Challenge.
Time keeps ticking. As we've said this in the past, previous races earlier on this evening, though, doesn't matter that we're under caution. The clock still runs to keep us on schedule here, because we do have one more event coming up later tonight. Starting at 8:05 will be the Sports Car Championship Canada, and they'll likely finish in the nighttime, so the sun will be going down probably around 8:30ish or so, and so you'll see an end to that race in the night, and that'll be interesting to watch, as this is a tight track, and no doubt those drivers will feel like they're overrunning their headlights a lot of the time. So there you can see the field. But what's interesting too, and what I noticed off that replay when you saw the initial start, is the sand and the dirt and the dust on the track. I mean, the track hadn't been quiet for that long. We just had about an hour break for the corner marshals to get a bite to eat and get some refreshment. And you can see all the dust that accumulated on the track, off the racing line and on it. And so that made it very difficult for some of these drivers to hook up and get their tires to stick on that standing start. So Jimmy Briere in the 12 is now up in second spot. Gabriel Lacombe, Sean Bernier, Marc Aero. Remember, Marc Aero had a great starting spot, but an awful start in that Chevy Camaro, the predominantly blue and white Chevy Camaro, just in behind that gray BMW. That car just didn't seem to want to go off the initial start, so he fell right back. But because of the issues in front of him, managed to gain up a couple other positions. Another driver that had issues was Charles-André Bilodeau in the Ford Mustang EcoBoost. He had pulled off the pace in turn number 2 well before we had that issue. I believe he took it into the runoff area because he was quite a bit off the pace going through turn number 1. So full course caution continues for the cleanup involving the 75 of Alex Habrich. but it should be nearing completion very shortly. As Olivier Bedard in the number 1 continues out in front. Bedard coming into this one second in points behind Eric Hogenschurz. Just 1 point back of that number 11 car. So this stands to be a very, very good points day for the driver out of Terrebonne, Quebec. Just outside Montreal. You can see a little bit of damage. There is probably that Chevy Spark. You can see the front bumper knocked off that Chevy Spark towards the back of the field. And that is Eric Coulombe, the rookie, in the number 83. So he has the front end damage, and that's what likely was that plastic that was all over the front straightaway. We finally got a good look at through the field and see who had the damage. So the drivers trying to maintain heat in their tires. They didn't get an awful lot of chance to warm up their tires in the first place. Not even a one completed lap, but the clock keeps ticking, so we keep clicking down laps under caution, and they do count. So we're 10 minutes into this 30-minute timed race, still just under 20 minutes left to be completed. So potentially still lots of racing left to come here for the Super Production Challenge as we continue under caution. If you've never seen Super Production Challenge before, we can tell you that the restart is not a standing start. It'll be a typical rolling start for this group. So Olivier Bedard will get set to bunch them up. They're going to start single file as a pace car pulls in. And we're getting set to go back to green here with just over 19 minutes left to be completed. Look at the field bunch up behind the number 1 of Olivier Bedard, that Nissan 370. He's got the Hyundai Genesis just in behind of Jimmy Briere. But who will get the better jump? There's one driver who will be shown the mechanical black flag, but the green flag waves, and we're back underway. And look at this for a start. A very, very slow start and a late throw of the green. As a couple drivers surprised that the green was thrown. Now look at Briere. He's all over the outside. In turn number 2, he'll settle in single file in turn number 3 behind the number 1 of Olivier Bedard. Gabriel Lacombe in the 03. Then it's the number 91 of Sean Bernier. Marc Aru rounds out the top 5. And it looks like Aru is going to make his way around. No, Aru still hangs on to 5th spot. The 6 of Marc-André Bourdage is holding down 6th place, but it's still single file at the front of the field. You have the 370, the Nissan 370 of Olivier Bedard, and the Hyundai Genesis of Jimmy Briere. Then look at that Honda of Gabriel Lacombe in 3rd spot. Change for 4th, though, coming. The 24 of Marc Aru will complete the pass. The Chevy Camaro moves up into the top 4. He'll slide the 91 of Sean Bernier back 1 spot. See them work through turn number 1. Some drivers taking a little bit different line. A big wiggle there from Marc Aru. And now Bourdage on the outside in the Lombardi Honda, the Civic. He'll have to tuck back into turn number 3. That would be a dicey corner in these types of vehicles to get through turn number 3 side by side. It's been done, but it's not been done very cleanly as Bernier tries to hold off a hard-charging number 6, Marc-André Bourdage. Bourdage inside, outside, now back to the inside, hard on the brakes. Will he lock it up? No, he doesn't. He's going to complete the pass in through turn number 6. What a textbook move as the 88 just in behind. That's Michael Habrich. Goes for a bit of a slide as we have debris down the back straightaway and significant quantities. Looks like a bumper cover down on the racetrack. And I wonder if that is what was remaining from the front bumper of the Chevrolet Sonic driven by Eric Coulomb. Remember, we saw that car with damage earlier on after that initial start incident, so it's possible that what was left of the bumper just left and is now sitting on the racetrack, hopefully out of a racing line. So the lead in the super production is right now the one of Olivier Bedard. Samuel Leclerc is in the 89. He leads the production class. There he is in the Acura TL. Ooh, and it was more than that. It was Chan in the Mini. He caught the wall big time down the back straightaway. Contact with another driver, and it tore off the rear bumper cover, but more importantly, damage to the front end of that front-wheel drive car. So Nelson Chan down the running order now. He crossed the line in 20th. I believe he stayed out, so he's going to try and muscle his way through for the last 15 minutes of this race. Halfway down, halfway to go, and it was another Mini that made contact with the 20 of Nelson Chan, and there is the end result. So the bumper cover was off this Mini. You can see the driver unbuckling, getting out. I didn't catch the number of that one. I believe it was Yannick Lupien in the number 34. And there is the debris. So the reef flag is out. That's that red and yellow flag, the striped one. That's indicating to the driver that there is debris on the racetrack. As a couple drivers start sliding down the running order, Shelby Mills. Off the pace, another one too. Fell down our list of drivers. Samuel Leclerc is up into the 9th spot. He's the leader in the production class. And looking through to see who the leader will be in the compact class. Believe that's going to be the 67 of Vincent Desautel, running down the running order a little bit. But look at this production class car, the 89, the Acura TL. So that is not a super production class car. That is a production class car. And he leads in that class, but he's putting all kinds of pressure, is Samuel Leclerc, on the 88 of Michael Habrich. Then you have Sean Bernier in the 91 just ahead of this group. And they still see that debris down the straightaway as the Leclerc, number 89, almost ran over some plastic. And you have to be careful with that because these tires can cut down. They're fairly robust tires, but they can cut down pretty easily. So a pair of Nissans in this one. Charles Despatie is in the 71. Just in behind Leclerc, chasing Habrich in the 88, another Nissan, and they're all chasing the number 91 BMW 330 of Sean Bernier. Bernier drives out of Ottawa, Ontario for Metric Homes Racing. The BMW 323i. Habrich still has the inside going into turn number 1, but he's got Leclerc up on the outside, and Leclerc lights up the right front tire under braking and drags it in there. Look at Habrich now. Will he drive it in on the outside? He does, and almost closes the door. He left a little gap. There was a little racing room there, but not much. And Habrich, a masterful drive to hang on to that position after the 89 of Samuel Leclerc tried to make a move down the front straightaway. Look who's come to join the party. The 11 of Eric Hogenschurz is moving back up through the field. Remember, he sat on pole. He is your points leader coming into this event. He got some damage on the original start, I believe in turn number 2. Possibly he went off. We did not get a replay of what happened to that number 11. We just see the resulting damage, and we knew there was a caution in turn number 2. So we believe that he went a little bit wide and caught the tire wall in that BMW 330i, but Hogenschurz is driving as a man possessed, working his way back up through the field. And he'll find himself well inside the top 10 now. Look at the speed he carries off turn number 11. As Habrich and Leclerc still battle in front. Oh, big time crossways for Leclerc. Contact with the 88 of Habrich, and here comes Hogenschurz in on the outside. That's the place where he made the error in lap number 1. He does not make the same mistake. It looks like something might be rubbing on that Acura of Leclerc as he drops off the pace. Habrich is going to hit that plastic down the back straightaway. Yeah, Leclerc has had something gone amiss in the Acura. Hogenschurz to the inside in turn number 6. He's not quite there. Habrich is going to hang on to it. Have another look at this dicing on the front straightaway. There's Leclerc down the inside. He gets hard on the brakes and the back end steps out on him. That's where he makes contact with the 88 of Habrich, and it looks like he either broke or dented that left front wheel. He's now off the pace. So there is your race leader, the number 1 of Olivier Bedard, out for a Friday night drive here on the streets of Trois-Rivières. Jimmy Briere is holding down second. Marc Aru is back up into third place in the 24 after an awful initial start. He managed to make up ground on the restart, which is probably the only driver in the field who wanted to see a restart that early, as that car did not leave the initial grid, the standing start. But Olivier Bedard has done everything he's needed to do here today. A driver who has won here in the past at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières in that one car. He's raced in other disciplines as well, and he's a veteran here on the streets of Trois-Rivières. Just under 9 minutes to go now here in the Super Production Challenge. So there is your leaders in the Super Production class. Olivier Bedard, Jimmy Briere. You can see the gap between those two drivers. Marc Aru has now come through to complete his lap. Marc-André Bourdage in the 6. He is holding down 4th. And then it's Jean Bernier still in 5th. He's got Eric Hogenschurz in 6th now, who's giving chase in the 11th. But will he run out of time? That is the big question. Hogenschurz could really use a caution now as far as points are concerned. He comes into this one just 1 point up on Olivier Bedard. So this will definitely shake things up heading into tomorrow's race. There is your 4th place runner as the two different classes start to mix. You get into some of the slower classes of the other cars. So the next race for the Super Production Challenge will be tomorrow afternoon at 5:10. That's when race number 2 will hit the track, and then they will have a 3rd race on Sunday morning at 10:35. So 3 races for this division of race cars. 3 classes, and there you can see Leclerc is down pit lane as they're putting a new left front tire on. Get all the bolts torqued up. Now he's having a little bit of trouble refiring that brand new Acura TL after contact in turn number 1 with the 88 of Michael Habrich. Broke that alloy wheel and ended a very, very good run for what was the leader in the production class. So Mario Charette is now the leader in the production class in the number 57. He's currently sitting in 9th place overall. Nathan Block has moved up nicely as well. He started 19th. He's up to 11 in the 05. So a couple other drivers we're watching as the leader starts working through the lap traffic. So again, these are all production-based cars, whether it be super production, production, or the compact class. We're talking to the founder of this series, which it was organized about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, in 2011, so 11 years ago. But he said the compact class is pretty close to a B spec for the SCCA in the U.S. If you're familiar with the club racing in the U.S., that's exactly what the compact class is. So there's a lot of vehicles out there that are eligible to run in that class, get the drivers' feet wet, and they can move up through the ranks as they see fit. But here's the problem. Once you get into these later stages of these races, you get the leader into lap traffic, mixing with some of these slower traffic, just some of the lesser categories. Jimmy Briere is a little bit too far back to make a move and to close the gap. There he goes through the 12 of Jimmy Briere. We got a car around, big smoke show. That is in turn number 8 on the exit of turn number 8, and that's just ahead of your leaders as there goes Briere through in the number 12. Mark Aru is in that Chevy Camaro, but what happened? Oh, a big hit for the Lexus. And there you can see the tires lit up for Frederic Bernier in the number 28, the Lexus IS 350. And big damage to the nose of that car. You can see the fluids leaking out. No caution yet. He was able to refire and get moving once again. He heads to the runoff area. And will try and make his way to the paddock now, but that's going to be a big fix overnight for the crew of Frederic Bernier, who qualified for this race in 10th place. And has already dropped down the running order to 22nd. So it looks like turn 8, which can be a difficult corner. You try and carry as much speed as you can through there. There is a runoff area, but it does end. And unfortunately, it ends with a tire wall and a concrete wall behind it. And that's exactly what Bernier had found out. There's Hogenschurz now. Hogenschurz has managed to catch Marc-Andre Bourdage, and look at the 11 sail through. So your points leader will pick up another spot on this lap inside the top 4. So what looked to be a horrible points day building for the driver of the 11 is actually turning out to be not that bad at all. There is the damage. That happened way back on lap number 1. Hogenschurz had to restart at the tail of the field. And he has been driving angry all race long as the 11 has had to march his way back up through the pack of cars, not just the super production class, but he had to make his way through the compact class, the production class, and the super production class to get up inside the top 5, where he sits now in 4th position. We can tell you, too, that the 11 of Hogenschurz does have the fastest lap of the race so far, a 13.732. That's about a second and a bit quicker than your race leader, Olivier Bedard, as Hogenschurz works his way through the field. And you can see the 44 of Kai Dial and the Subaru BRZ. Tried to give him lots of space, almost cost him as he almost got into that tire wall, the retaining wall, in the exit of turn number 6. Now the 38 of Megan Tomlinson, the Lombardi Honda Civic just ahead. Some damage to the back end of that 38 as she's looking her mirrors. And Hogenschurz was trying to make a move. He'll be able to make it now on the front straightaway as he carries a lot of speed and manages to make the pass before they even hit the start-finish line. But you can see Bourdage in the other Lombardi Honda, the other Civic on the track. That's super production versus production. And Bourdage had to back off just a little bit so as to not make contact, but deep into lap traffic now is your race leader, Olivier Bedard. We'll probably see the white flag this time by, as we have just under a minute and a half left to go here in this 30-minute timed race for the Super Production Challenge. And Olivier Bedard has led since the drop of the green. He's had a very, very good race as the 11 car had issues on lap number 1. Olivier Bedard has been out in front ever since. There is the white flag. One more lap to go for your race leader as his team looks on, anxiously awaiting the results of the final lap. As Bedard, very much a veteran as we talked about. He's won here in the past at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. And it looks as though he's going to do it once again. Not too much traffic left in front of him now as he heads down the back straightaway. Sizable lead over Jimmy Briere. There is your second place drivers. Actually closed the gap a little bit, working through traffic. So hats off to the driver of the 12, Jimmy Briere. There you can see they're almost on the same corner. They weren't for the longest time as Olivier Bedard gives a little flash of the headlights to the slower traffic just ahead. And the driver ahead pulls over and lets him through, and heading off onto the front straightaway. In through turn number 10 now, and looking at turn number 11, you can hear the crew starting to pick up their cheers. They're a little bit more comfortable now in doing so. Olivier Bedard will win race number 1 of the Super Production Challenge here at the Grand Prix at Trois-Rivières. What a run for the driver of the number 1. Started on the outside of the front row. He got a great start. He might not have been leading into turn number 1, but he was close, and then problems for the number 11 of Aaron Hogenschurz. And he dropped all the way back through the field, and from then on in, it was all Olivier Bedard. He opened up a big gap on the number 12 of Jimmy Briere. Briere did manage to gather some of that distance back up in the final few laps as the two drivers navigated through lap traffic, but in the end, the number 1 was just too much for the competition here today. There you see the 30 of Greg Bell sandwiched in between those two Super Production cars. Or Connor Bell, I should say, coming home in 13th spot. So a very good run. And it looks, just by rough math, looks like he will come home in, Connor Bell will come home 3rd, I believe, in the production class. And Yannick Lupien, actually Patrick Whitmer, in the number 93, looks like he'll be the winner of the compact class in 22nd place overall. So your race winner finds his spot on pit lane. He wants to give a big thumbs up to his crew before heading off to victory lane and taking the trek down into turn number 1 where he'll get the trophy. But an interesting series, and we love seeing them run here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Super Production, a standing start, and it was chaotic on lap number 1 as a couple of drivers involved in incidents. Look at the dust fly. What can you see going into turn number 1? And then turn 3 was where we had one of the major issues. One of the Haverich cars with a broken right front wheel, sending some debris onto the track, and there is Hogenschurz. That's what happened in turn number 2. It was a full spin, and he might have made contact with the wall. He had to restart right from the tail of the field, all the way back to the back of the compact class, and work his way back up, but he did, coming home inside the top 5. A couple of drivers had a great dice through the middle portion of this race, and then more action down the back straightaway as Chan caught the back wall off the nose of that car. That was an incident that happened off the original start, the Chevy Spark losing his front bumper cover, and then Haverich Almost makes contact there with the 91 of Sean Bernier, and then Habrich again makes contact with the 89. And that really ended the good run for the 89. And then the problems for the Lexus. IS 350 driven by Cedric Bernier, and a couple other spinners on the final few laps of this one as we go back through the footage and see some of the finishers deeper in the field. But the checkered flag waves. Winner overall and winner in class is the number 1 of Olivier Bedard. Thumbs up from his Extreme Motorsports crew. And Olivier Bedard looked very, very comfortable at the front of the field. The drivers now out along pit lane. They'll make their way to victory lane and the podium ceremony. So we still have one more race to go here tonight. So you don't want to go away. Coming up in about 15 minutes. That's when we'll throw the green for the Sports Car Championship Canada. The GT4s and the TCRs will hit the track for the SCCC race number 1 of the weekend. Very tight qualifying and very racy field, so it should be fun to watch. Join us again, 8:05 is when we go green for the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin.
Oui, oui.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous allons maintenant procéder à la cérémonie protocolaire de la course Super Production Challenge dans la première classe, c'est-à-dire Super Production. Pour honorer les 3 pilotes, j'invite le président de Mag Express, M. François Tremblay. En 3e position, il est de Trois-Rivières, Marc Héroux. En 2e position, il est encore de Trois-Rivières, Jimmy Brière. Et finalement, le gagnant qui est de Terrebonne, un grand champion, Olivier Bédard. Mesdames et messieurs, ceci complète la cérémonie protocolaire de la course Super Production Challenge. Restez avec nous pour la prochaine épreuve au programme dans la catégorie Sports Car Canada Championship.
Deux, check. Ça fonctionne-tu? Check. 1, 2. Test. Test. Check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27.
Côte mentionné, qui débute au Grand Prix.
Course sur les réflecteurs.
Mais il a déjà roulé, il a fait de l'endurance. Donc il a probablement déjà roulé.
Okay. C'est bon. Super. Mesdames, Messieurs, on vous souhaite un bon début de soirée et bienvenue sur le circuit de Trois-Rivières pour cette édition 2022, la 52e. Ici François Beaulé en compagnie de Philippe Brasseur et dans quelques instants, la Sport Car Championship Canada. Les voitures sont déjà en piste. Philippe, une première présence pour ces pilotes et ces voitures, mais de magnifiques voitures avec 2 divisions dans cette série.
2 divisions, en effet, c'est-à-dire les voitures GT4, donc des voitures
Good evening and
Grand
welcome
Tourisme,
back to
et puis
the
les
Grand Prix
TCR,
of
des voitures
Trois-Rivières.
de
I'm Dave
touring
Bradley,
car
and we
racing.
get set to bring you the
Mercedes,
Sports Car
McLaren,
Championship
les
Canada, the
Hyundai,
final
les Honda,
race
bref,
for
on en a
Fast
pour tous les
Friday
goûts et pour les yeux
to
qui sont
kick
vraiment
off the
éblouis à voir ces
52nd edition
Ah oui, parce que c'est
of
vrai
the
que ce sont
Grand
de très
Prix
belles voitures. Si on regarde
here
notamment
in
la catégorie
Trois-Rivières.
GT4,
Tomorrow
c'est-à-dire les
morning,
voitures qui
things
vont
start
viser la
early, so
victoire,
if you're
toute
looking for
catégorie,
something
eh
to
bien, on retrouve
watch
donc
early in the
une
morning with your
Mercedes
morning
AMG
coffee,
GT4,
you'll
une
want to
McLaren
check out
570
9:30
S
as
et
the
puis
start
une autre
time
Mercedes
for
AMG
the
GT4
Chevy
avec
Urban
en
Challenge.
proposition un
That's the
pilote
dirt
français.
modifieds
On aura l'occasion
on
d'en
asphalt
reparler
on a
davantage
road
dans quelques
course
instants,
here at the
Philippe, mais pour l'instant,
GP3R.
nous cédons le micro
It'll
à
be the
Monsieur
last chance
François
qualifier
Roy.
for that group, and that starts at 9:30. Then we'll get into the Sports Car Championship Canada Series race at 10:25, but that's exactly what we're about to get into. Right now, it's the Sports Car Championship Canada presented by Michelin. As the field is lined up here on the front straightaway, you can see it's a new driver on pole, the 57 Romain Monti, alongside Zachary Vanier, your points leader in the GT4 class. Charles Robin, another GT4 driver, will start in third. Just getting set for the command, and we're going to send it down to the Master of Ceremonies on the track when we get the words. There it is. Not quite yet. Looks to be some audio issues, but if you've watched some of the Sports Car Championship Canada races this year, what has been happening is the GT4 cars get separated from the TCR cars. So there'll be a group at the front, a brake, and then a group at the back. So GT4 is at the front, and then a brake, and the TCR cars at the back. What is happening here is the drivers will start where they qualified overall. So the fast time that you were able to put in earlier on today under beautiful hot sunshine is the place in which you will start for this race. That's why you're seeing a car like Jeremy Daniel, Richard Boak, Jean-Francois Evy, Justin DiBenedetto, and Jocelyn Hebert up in there in the starting running order before Gilles Nadeau in the 61 towards the tail of the field, who struggled a little bit in qualifying.
1, 2, c'est bon.
Looks like we do have our audio issues resolved. You can see the drivers opening up their doors. Some of these drivers don't have windows that open. The GT4 drivers especially. You can see the two Mercedes cars with doors open to get air in. Let's head down trackside.
National du Canada avant le départ de la course. L'hymne sera chanté par une jeune artiste de 19 ans, Maxime.
Au Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front et ça, de fleurs en glorieux, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix, ton histoire est une épopée.
Merci, mesdames et messieurs. C'était Maxime, notre jeune artiste invité. Maintenant, pour prononcer l'invitation traditionnelle à lancer les moteurs, c'est un professionnel de la Ligue nationale de hockey et c'est un arbitre. Il s'appelle Michel Cormier.
Pilote, démarrez vos moteurs. Drivers, start your engine.
After a wonderful rendition of "Oh Canada" by 19-year-old Maxime, recording artist, the words that the drivers want to hear. Call to fire them up here on the front straightaway, and you'll see the lights all on these race cars, and that is noteworthy because we are racing at dusk, so the sun is setting, and expecting this race may finish under darkness, but it will be a -40-minute timed race for the Sports Car Championship Canada, presented by Michelin here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, the inaugural attempt and the inaugural visit for this series to visit here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Now 2 separate classes, as we mentioned, as we were going through the starting lineup. So GT4 class cars, a little bit quicker, a little bit more horsepower, mostly rear-wheel drive. About 500 horsepower, V8 power, the Mercedes-AMG, the McLaren. Those are 2 GT4 examples. We have another one in the field, the Porsche GT4 Club Sport. Also, just in behind, that's the next class, the TCR class, an internationally homologated class. You could run it wherever you want around the world. The rules are pretty much similar. They're about 400 horsepower. 4-cylinder cars, front-wheel drive, turbocharged, and very fun to watch. But what makes both classes very important is that they are so close. There is a balance of power that's used, or balance of performance, sorry, that is used in these classes. So they do add a little bit of weight on to maybe help out some of the older model cars in the fields, and maybe slow down some of the newer model cars, because you see there's a 2022 Audi RS3 leading the TCR group. Right behind it is the 2018 Audi of Richard Boak. So several years difference between Boak and Jeremy Daniel. And interesting to note, the pole sitter in the 57, Romain Monti, is driving for the first time in the Sports Car Championship Canada Series and is actually a Mercedes factory driver from France, making his first start here on the streets of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, making his first start in the Sports Car Championship Canada Series as well. So amazing to see the level of talent here. You've got Zachary Vanier, your points leader in the McLaren, just in behind. As the field tries to get some temperature into those Michelin tires, weaving back and forth, side to side, trying to get some heat in the brakes as well. You can see the lights shining just a little bit brighter as things start to get a little bit darker around the racetrack. Looking forward to seeing this series race as the sun starts to set. The series put on a wonderful show the last time they were on a street circuit on the streets of Toronto for the Indy event. They're both the GT4 and the TCR class did a great job as they run through some of the speedy dry left from an incident in the super production class that just left the track. So that'll still be dusted off by the time they'll complete their first laps. You can see a beautiful field of race cars all lined up. 16 of them through 2 classes, looking for the green flag. You can see they'll bunch up nicely. The green flag waves, and we're underway here in the Sports Car Championship Canada event on the streets of Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Fanned out 3 wide. You saw Charles Robin trying to move to the inside on his teammate. He backed off. Everybody gets through turn 1 cleanly. And now turn 2, but the big question is turn 3. See Richard Boak dive underneath the number 21 of Jean-Francois Evie. Boak actually had a pretty bad start. He lost a number of positions. The big winner on that one was the 66 of Gary Kwok. Kwok now third in class behind the 89 of Jocelyn Hébert. Boak not losing touch, though. He's tagged onto the back, and there is problems for the 21 of JF Evie in the Audi as he'll try and get things righted. Turn number 6. Look at that speedy drive. Kicked up. Another driver went off in turn number 8 into the runoff area. I don't know if he made contact with the tire wall, but you saw the flash of the headlights going straight in turn number 8. Lap number 1 officially in the books. Zachary Vanier, your leader in the Pfaff Motorsports McLaren. And look at the gap he has now already. Almost 2 seconds on Romain Monti, who was your pole sitter in the Mercedes AMG. Factory Mercedes driver out of France. Getting a run in this GT4 car. Teammate to Charles Robin in the Sodi Card sponsored entry. And then you have Jeremy Daniel, the points leader in the TCR class. Jocelyn Hébert, who's only run a couple of events so far this year, but he is a dominant force here on the streets of Trois-Rivières, Quebec. As a matter of fact, he has the most podiums compared to anybody else who has ever run here. Jocelyn Hébert, 24 podiums, 9 of them first place in the history of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Think about that, 24 podiums in 52 events for the driver of the 89. And he's doing pretty well here again today as Hébert second in class, so he stands ready to step up onto the podium once again here today. As Charles Robin turns up the heat now on his teammate as Zachary Vanier continues to open up by about a half second again. 2.2 seconds now the difference between your leader and this battle for second spot. Add Jeremy Daniel into that group as well in the TCR class. He's not far off the pace of those 2 GT4s ahead of him. Boak moves to the inside of the 66 of Gary Kwok. Give him that position before they get to turn number 6 and a lockup from the 84. Hard under braking, and he has to take that runoff area. He decides to go straight rather than attempting the turn and hitting the tire wall, but Richard Boak, who started second in class, 5th overall, is now sitting stopped, waiting for the field to go by. Looks like he's unable to refire that number 84. Jean-Francois Evie has made it back out onto the track, but he's running last in 16th spot currently. Boak is falling down the running order as we speak, so as drivers come through to complete their laps, we get an updated running order. It is still Vanier. That time, Romain Monti turned a lap time quicker, so he cut into the lead by about 0.2 of a second. It was Monty's quickest lap and the quickest lap of the day so far for anybody, a 108.9. It's quicker than Vanier's 109.0. But it looks to be that the driver from France, as he settles in, he did this in qualifying too, as he settled in a little bit, he started to pick up speed. So I think it's just a matter of learning this track and learning the feel of that race car once again. But he is a factory Mercedes driver, so it shouldn't take him too long to come to grips with that race car. But you can see the TCR car of Jeremy Daniel, that Audi, the number 10, is keeping close with the GT4 cars, and they will do that here on this track at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. The track doesn't have very long straightaways. There's really just that one straightaway, as they're coming onto it right now. But that straightaway allows the GT4 cars to use that extra horsepower and open up a bit of a gap So the cars like the McLaren and the Mercedes will be able to open up their gap there. The rest of it is pretty tight and twisty, and that benefits the lighter but still very powerful TCR cars. So they can flip their way through those tight corners, and that's why Jeremy Daniel is able to keep pace. He's now into the 109s for his quick lap time. As Zachary Vanier's lead is now under 2 seconds. So he squirted out to a lead very quickly early on. And it looks like Romain Monti is now clawing it back. Charles Robin also turning a quick lap time that last time by into the 108.9. So he continues to close ground as well. Big wiggle from the 48 of Ron Tomlinson as he chases the 80 car of Connor Attrell in the Veloster N. Connor Attrell had a little bit of a spin in qualifying, did not hit anything, gathered it back up. He's having a quietly solid run behind the wheel of that number 80 car, and I believe that's Richard Boak that has refired. And Boak is 1 lap down to your race leader at this point. And we bring in Joel Robinson, who is the producer of the Sports Car Championship Canada on TSN. Joel, welcome to the live stream.
Thank you. The Hyundai team, they worked pretty hard throughout that qualifying session. Quinn never got out. They had a problem with the engine, brand new pump on it. One of the fins fell down. They fixed it. You know, those guys have been struggling. They've been working on getting those cars just to the racetrack, and then to have that problem. But he's out there now, and all 3 cars are looking good.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob Attrell running in 9th spot. And there you see Richard Boak sliding underneath the 48 of Ron Tomlinson. Bob Attrell 9th, Connor Attrell in 10th. And you mentioned Quinn Attrell. He is on track. He started at the tail of the field. He's up to 14th now. So with no practice, no qualifying earlier on today, that's a pretty decent run. So they're being using this track time as an information session for the 86 team of Quinn Attrell. Gather up as much as they can, but look at this at the lead now. It's going to turn into a race here very soon. We're under a second. Just 3 laps ago, it was 2.2 seconds. Zachary Vanier held the lead. Romain Monti and Charles Robin. And now 0.986, and it's even closer than that. Look at Monti is now catching the McLaren ahead of him. The Technica Minding Pfaff Motorsports McLaren is falling back into the clutches of this Mercedes AMG.
Beautiful looking cars. I mean, all 3 of these, just you walk by, the fans walk by their pits and they just can't get enough of them.
Did you see the blue flame out of the back of the McLaren into turn number 1? That is super cool as he lets off. You can see the engine just breathe. A mid-engine race car compared to the front-engine Mercedes GT4s. And it looks like Monti, again, 0.7 seconds, 0.7 of a second now. The difference is Monti once again sets fast lap of the race that last time by. Look at him wiggle under braking turn number 6.
He's getting used to this track, you know. I just found out Monti's from France, and he's a factory driver for Mercedes.
Yeah, that's a pretty neat deal to have a driver of that caliber here in the Sports Car Championship Canada Series. And to watch what he can do, and you mentioned he is getting more and more comfortable with every passing lap. There you see Richard Boak. This is not a battle for position. Connor Attrell has a mirror filled with the 84 of Boak. But Boak is a lap down after going into the runoff area in turn number 6. Have a look at the brake rotors, though, on some of these cars as you get the opportunity. As the darkness starts to set in here at the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivières, you can start to see those rotors glowing. And I was looking at the 84 of Richard Boak there. Look, Connor Attrell's right front is glowing red hot. So is the one on Richard Boak's car.
They're using them up here. I mean, the Trois-Rivières race has always been hard on brakes. It doesn't matter what kind of car you're driving here. This is tough. And you know, that's why long distance races are always hard here to do. They really have to watch their lap counts. Sometimes you're talking about fuel, but it's more about the brakes here.
So we're just about 10 minutes through this one. That means we have 30 minutes left to be completed. So you're right. If the brake rotors are glowing this hot, this early, the drivers have to be thinking, am I using it up too much? And look at though, Vanier is starting to push that car too.
Monty's there. He's just filling it up right now, waiting to see his spot, right?
And you look, so just judging by the brakes, you look at the brakes on the McLaren, they're glowing red hot. The Mercedes just in behind that is putting in fast lap time after fast lap time. Look at that. There is no glow on either fronts or back of that number 57 driven by Romain Monti out of France. So he's been able to care for that car, but yet continue to press and put in fast lap times as the lead is now under half a second.
And you look at the 56, he did this in Toronto. He sat back, he let the leaders go and kind of conserved a little bit. He was there at the end, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, and he came home with a podium finish, and it's something he's done a lot. He's taken care of that car, and it looked like things were going to get dicey in that first race in Toronto with Zachary Vanier and Gavin Sanders. Sanders was driving a Mercedes AMG in that race, and they got very, very close at times. So I think Charles Robin thought, you know what, I'm going to hang back and let's see what plays out in front of me. And it looks like he's going to take that same page of the notebook and use it in this race as well, as Vanier will be able to see the lights of the Mercedes filling his mirrors as we complete yet another lap.
That turn 9, you know, it looked like the 57 was sizing Vanier up in turn 9, and that's not a typical sports car passing zone. But the NASCAR guys really use that. You can stick your nose in there and can open just get a little bit of room in there, get in his head. I think he can do it.
Now, in the drivers' meeting earlier on today, the drivers were warned about track limits in turn number 8. That's an important corner. So you can see the yellow line there as the drivers use that extra bit of paved area. But turn number 8, which is what they'll be coming into very shortly, there is a huge painted runoff area here. So Zachary Vanier goes through, and there you can see the curbing and the green paint. If you get 4 tires on the green paint, you get a warning. If you do it again, you'll probably get penalized. So that is something that is in the drivers' minds as they work through turn number 8. Everybody was pretty tidy through that one, though.
And that's something Robin Buck and Peter Lockhart have to convey to these drivers. They're former racers that work with the series and work with the drivers. They're that go-to, and they talk to the driver. Why are we doing this? Why are these penalties happening, or why are these infractions? Why are we being told this? It's all part about making the series better.
Yeah, it is, and the danger of running into that runoff area is the merge, and they made that clear in the drivers' meeting, is merging back into traffic and doing it safely, and it's nearly impossible to do that when you're there because you just can't see in the mirrors. Here's 2 different class cars, the GT4 Porsche of Gilles Nadeau in the 61 and the number 52 of Dean Baker. Baker made a trip into the runoff area in practice earlier on today. Sam Baker, his son, we saw him running in the Formula 1600 class earlier on today. Unfortunately for Sam, was running in the top 5 and something went amiss in turn number 2, right where Sam is going through right now and still chasing that GT4 car. But it must be frustrating for a driver in a TCR class car if you get up to a GT4 car and you're right there and then you get to the straightaway and then all of a sudden you lose all that ground.
Yeah. But you know, Gilles learning. He's a master. He's in the masters class in a lot of these competitions. He's out there having fun. He's not trying to get in anyone's way. I'm sure he knows he's got someone in his mirror, but he knows he's also got a better motor.
For sure, if somebody pokes a nose underneath, he's going to give him space. That's the kind of driver that Gilles Nadeau is.
Tightening up here now.
It is. It's getting very tight.
56. He's right there again.
Now it's under a second between the top 3 drivers as the tan of Jeremy Daniel continues to lead in the TCR class, but he's about 10 seconds adrift of this lead battle. Zach Vanier, Romain Monti, and Charles Robin. That's your top 3. 2 cars. The 2 Mercedes cars prepared at the Really Racing shop, and the FAF Motorsports crew go to work on this McLaren with sponsorship from Technica Mining. And Zachary Vanier, in his first year driving this McLaren, he looks very much at home. And he's building confidence every time he sets foot on one of these tracks. Some of these tracks he's never seen before, and he admits it's a pretty steep learning curve.
Especially this time of night. A lot of these guys are used to running in the daytime, and now, you know, maybe it's a little bit easier. The sun's not in your eyes. It's a little bit more flat. You know, it's a lot like skiing. Maybe you can see the moguls a little bit easier this time of night. But you can really tell with the headlights the bumpiness of the track, especially in the back end. The front end's a little smoother than the back end.
Yeah, 100%. And there goes Bob Attrell. That is a battle for position. So put Bob Attrell up into 8th spot as the 4 of Justin DiBenedetto slides back 1 and maybe 2 as Connor Attrell is right there as well in the 80 car. Still that 84 of Richard Boak is in the mix. He's a lap down to the race leader. So he's staying out there for points reasons. He wants to gain as many points as he possibly can. And right now he's hoping that, you know, maybe something happens to a car in front of him. He'll be able to pick up a couple spots. And there goes Connor Attrell.
Connor's gone by. That's now he's right with his dad now.
DiBenedetto, a graduate of the Nissan Sentra Cup, which you'll see running here on the streets of Trois-Rivières over the course of the weekend. In his first year in that TCR class car, he has the flasher on as he's looking for pit lane. So indicating to the other drivers around that he was going to pit lane. So something has gone amiss, and this is exactly what we talked about with Richard Boak and why he needs to keep on full attack mode. Yeah, some smoke, possibly brake issue on the front end of that Audi. It was glowing pretty red.
These cars race in you know, another 12 hours, so these crews they won't be going out and visiting downtown Three Rivers tonight and having beers. They're going to be working pretty late to get these cars back together.
Yeah, for sure. And you can see that flame once again from the back end of the McLaren. I love that shot. It's a blue flame as Zachary Vanier lets off into turn number 1. And there you can see it. Just quick flash, and you can see the red-hot tailpipes on the McLaren as he's getting every bit he can out of that car. But
this will be interesting now with the lap traffic, Dave. We saw this in Toronto, and Vanier had a good lead, but once he hit that lap traffic, the guy in second was pretty aggressive, and this should get interesting.
And it's easy to forget that Vanier is just a teenager. I mean, he shows such poise when he's behind the wheel of the race car on the racetrack, but you get into situations and experience pays off. And a guy like Romain Monti, who has tons of laps behind the wheel testing for McLaren, or Mercedes, I should say, in France, and now he's here chasing the youngster. So he's a little bit more comfortable. Maybe he'll use that to his advantage, but it was under 0.3 of a second, the difference at the line. It'll be less this time. And they'll come into lap traffic on the front straightaway. A couple TCR cars just ahead.
Right? Got to flash and let them know we're coming, right?
That's one of those tools that the drivers use to get in the head of the driver ahead of them. So you want to give a quick flash just to catch the light in the mirror of the car ahead so the driver knows you're there. If you're a slower car, that's the faster one behind you. There it is. You can see Vanier.
This is where they have to take care of business because it's a long straightaway here. They can gobble up these two cars right now.
So it looks like Baker's going to pull actually around Nadeau, and Vanier ducks to the inside. I don't think Nadeau knew that Vanier was going to be there. And Monty actually is the one who gets caught behind the 61.
Yeah, Nadeau's just going to say, okay, I learned my lesson here.
Now he's looking fully in his mirror. The top 3 will go through. Charles Robin clears, but that was a big win for the 9 of Zachary Vanier. Now he's having trouble, though, getting around the 52 of Dean Baker. Baker opened up the hole. He saw that the faster cars were right there. That's a gentleman move right there.
Yeah. I mean, he's eating up a little bit of the line, but, you know, those guys, that's what racing's about, right?
Yeah, quick trip across the green paint for Romain Monti as Baker tried to give him as much room as he could. Monti didn't really improve his position or track position, so likely no penalty to come of that one.
And you see Nadeau, he's just kind of sneaked up on Baker while he had to whoa up for the leaders.
Now when you get off the racing line, really costs you time. So looking at the overall time, 20 minutes in the books, 10 minutes left to go. So well over the Or sorry, we're
20
20 minutes left to go. Yeah, so we're hitting the halfway mark here in this 40-minute timed race for the Sports Car Championship Canada presented by Michelin. What a treat we've been given here again. Just like race number 1 on the streets of Toronto, and Nadeau makes a mistake. Stops before getting into the runoff area. He's looking for the right gear to get going, but he's losing valuable time and valuable real estate on the racetrack as well.
Now that's a critical point there. He's blocking the runoff zone. So the folks in timing scoring will have to look at that race control. Yeah, he's still there. That is not a great spot.
Did he stall it because he backed up at one point?
Yeah, he's in trouble there.
Yeah, it looks like he's throwing his hands up in frustration. So problems for the 61 of Gilles Nadeau in turn number 6. And that is it's one of the opportunities to make a pass on this track as the leaders will come through. There he finally got it restarted.
I was going to say, if Monty popped out without knowing that car is there, that could be trouble, right? So
yeah, absolutely. The marshals down the back straightaway would indicate there would be an issue in turn number 6 as Vanier continues in that racing line. You see Monty poking his nose out, getting a sniff of a potential pass going into turn number 6. Can't make it stick. The difference is back up to 0.7 of a second. The last time they crossed the stripe, we'll see what it is this time. Charles Robin still well within striking distance and a second back. Been really impressed by Charles Robin in this 2022 season. That number 56 has been in play, really a threat to win every time out. JF Avey in the number 21 just ahead of the race leaders. He's been off the pace after taking a trip down the runoff lane in turn number 6 himself.
You know, this is great having this. You know, this is the sports car series in Canada now, and it's great to have it at the marquee event. You know, we all know Formula One's there, but that's kind of outpriced itself. But this Grand Prix is the place to be in August.
It really is, and the fans support it, and it's
amazing.
It is amazing, and it's the series is growing. I mean, you have to think it was 18 months ago that Chris Bye decided we're going to put together this series. We're going to get that ball rolling, and at that point, the ball was little, and it was starting to roll. And in the time since, it's just picked up steam and picked up size, and there's more interest. There's more manufacturers taking a look at this series. So as we go through, like 2022 is bigger and better than 2021 was, and now 2023, already the excitement is starting for 2023 as well. The owner's getting pretty jazzed for what comes next. But there you can see, as it gets darker out on this racetrack, it still looks bright from the camera perspective, but for these drivers, it's going to be pretty dark.
It's August. The sun's getting a little lower as we get into August. And this should play, you know, those brakes. He's got, what do we got, 16 minutes to go. He's really got to massage this car to get it to the end here, I think.
Yeah, Zachary Vanier has been pushing that car very, very hard, and there you can see just how bright those lights are, but no doubt to these drivers it'll feel like they're constantly overdriving those lights, that they're running over them. They want it to be a lot farther ahead, but trying to get the vision they need as Romain Monti continues to chase your race leader, Zachary Vanier. This is for first place overall. We can tell you that Jeremy Daniel leads Tom Kwok and Jocelyn Hébert in the TCR class, and Jocelyn Hébert poised to take another step on the podium as the driver with the most career podiums ever here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. So if he finishes where he is running right now, so
there he goes.
There he goes. Change for the lead. Monty now in the 57 sneaks through in turn number 2.
Monty's not here for second place. He didn't fly across the Atlantic to pick up a small trophy.
But neither is Zachary Vanier. Look at him tucked in the draft down the straightaway. The McLaren has been very fast as he look at Monty move to defend. Was that a blocking maneuver or was it a move to defend? That's that's going to be a big question because Zachary Vanier had already made his move to pass. Yeah, you've got
Gilles Nadeau moved right over. He learned his lesson last time. So,
but look at now the 56 of Charles Romain. So Zachary Vanier can't just concentrate on the car in front of him. He's got to look back as well as the 56 is right there. But that was interesting to me to see that move that Monty made down the back straightaway, because it looked to me like Vanier did have a run on the inside and was going to try and make a pass into turn number 6, but that door was abruptly closed across the nose of that McLaren by the driver of the 57. Either way, new race leader as they cross the stripe. Romain Monty now with an 0.8 of a second lead in just one lap. So we know Vanier has it in him to open up a gap and be able to put those consistent quick laps in. He did it early in this race, had a 2.2 second lead, as a matter of fact, over the number 57 of Romain Monty, and then Monty slowly chipped his way at that, caught the leader, and then passed him in turn number 2. But it doesn't look like Vanier is going to go away without a fight. He was smiling at the end of race number 1 at the Toronto Indy when he got passed in lap traffic by Gavin Sanders. And this one, I think, is going to nod him a little bit more.
I don't know if he was smiling, Dave.
He was smiling through gritted teeth.
Yes. Racers, yeah, they don't like coming second. This has been a great battle up front. I'd love to see some TCR action. You know, Jeremy Daniel is he's showing who's the boss here this year.
Yeah, there is Jeremy Daniel. So he's pretty much by himself now in 4th spot overall, leader of the TCR class. And he's got a significant cushion on 2nd place in the TCR class. Tom Kwok, Jocelyn Hebert, as we mentioned, sitting in 3rd spot. Gary Kwok and Bob Attrell round out the top 5 in the TCR class. But you're right, Jeremy Daniel has been the points leader nearly since the get-go here in the 2022 season in the TCR class, and he's doing everything he needs to do here today after getting involved in an incident in the 2nd race of the Toronto Indy, getting dropped well down the order, so that tightened the points battle in the TCR class. But Jeremy Daniel opening that back up again because Richard Boak is still one lap down.
Great to see the Quats back, 55 and 56. They didn't come to Toronto, but they know that they can be competitive here. They ran the Canadian Touring Car Series here for years in those Hondas, and they love racing here.
Yeah, they have their cars sorted, and they are very fast. And yeah, they know this track, and it shows very much so. As Tom Kwok now 2nd in class, Gary 4th in class in those 2 Honda Civics, is Zachary Vanier now losing touch with your race leader as Romain Monty opens up a bit of a gap. A 108.2 is the last lap by Monty, a 109.4 by Zachary Vanier. As we say thank you to Joel Robinson, he'll head back down to his TV producing duties for the Sports Car Challenge Canada. And there is a great dice on the racetrack between the 88 of Bob Attrell and the 66 of Gary Kwok. So that was a swap of position earlier that lap. Bob Attrell, will he come back in turn number 2? Can't quite do it. Connor Attrell is right there. And then the 84 of Richard Boak is tagged onto the tail of that line. Again, Boak is a lap down, although there are several cars now also a lap down, and he's able to try and catch and pass, but as Boak continues to try and make up positions. Look at Attrell up on the outside. Turn number 6, that's going to be a tight place to try and make a move, and Connor Attrell will take advantage, so mark the 80. Up a spot as Bob Attrell falls back 1, trying to battle with the 66 of Tom Kwok. The leader, though, is just in behind the overall race leader, the 57 of Romain Monty. And there is the 57, trouble! Bob Attrell into the wall after touching the 84 of Richard Boak. A big hit to the nose of that Hyundai Elantra. And again, last race out, Bob Atrell had similar damage after making contact with the wall at the street circuit in Toronto, and now here it happens again with 10 minutes left. There's a big mess on the racetrack. Have another look at what happened. Bob Atrell out there. Richard Boak is on the outside, so he had the inside coming out of the corner, and I don't think Atrell saw him. I don't think he expected him to be there, but a really, really significant hit for that Hyundai Elantra N. See, window net is down as Bob Atrell indicating to the medical staff that he is okay, but the car is far from okay. You can see the parts and pieces, both front and back. A squished back end of that Elantra N as well. Oh, that's heartbreak for that team. And you heard Joel mention earlier how hard they had to work just to put those cars together over the last 2 weeks. All three of them involved in an incident at Toronto. And now Bob again with a crumpled number 88. He's moving around. No doubt he will be very frustrated with the finish here today. The rest of the drivers come through very gingerly. A lot of debris laid down on the racetrack as we continue under a full course caution. Romain Monti was your race leader. Still is, followed by Zachary Vanier and Charles Robin. That's your overall lead, and the lead in the GT4 class. Jeremy Daniel, who had a sizable lead on the 55 of Tom Kwok. We'll see that lead evaporated. Jocelyn Hebert in the 89 will be right there as well. And Gary Kwok. Gary was just ahead of this incident when it happened, as was the 80 of Connor Atrell. And the EMT crew is now into the window, checking on Bob Atrell. You can see the flashlights being shown, and now Bob is slowly getting out of that race car, trying to catch his breath after a hit that crumpled the front and then came back across the racetrack and crumpled the back of the race car as well. That's heartbreaking for that team, as they did work so hard to get that car back together. The Quaker State Hyundai Racing Canada entry. Bob, an active member here in the Sports Car Championship Canada. His two sons, Connor and Quinn, racing in this same race, and you can see it appears to be a little bit of tightness in the back from Bob Atrell as he gets seen by the medical team here on track. So the clock continues to tick, though, as the medical doctor now tending to Bob Atrell. That was the exit of turn number 9 just before they get into turn number 10. So very close to the pit area and start-finish line. So what happened was Richard Boak got to the inside of the 88 on turn number 9 on turn exit. The 88 was well on the outside, and he had to come back across the track because the next turn's a right-hander. So he came back across the track to get in position for the next corner and made contact with the 84 of Richard Boak. And unfortunately for Bob Atrell, gets into the wall. Unfortunately for Richard Boak, too, he comes to a stop. I didn't see that 84 car move, but it looks like they're going to get the board out for the driver of the 88, Bob Atrell. Give him a good check over. So Bob is up and moving, and they're just checking him out just to be extra careful. As Bob obviously complained about some pains. A red